Hi everyone, this is Mrs. McCrary. Today we're going to talk about reducing fractions. Our reading for today was from Pure Mathematics. We're going to start with section number 10. In section 10 it talks about starting with a mixed number and converting that to a simple fraction. So what we're going to do in this mixed number, we have our integer of 5 and then our common fraction of 7/8. Now what that means is we have 5 whole units and then this part of a unit. So in our minds we're going to break these 5 units into parts of units. Now each unit is broken into 8 parts, as we can see. So we are going to be multiplying the number of units that we have by the amount of parts they're going to be broken into. So multiplying our integer by our denominator. So 5 times 8 is 40. And that's the value of the integer. So we've got 40/8. And we also have 7/8 from our fraction that we started with. And then as we add across, 40/8 plus 7/8 gives us very easily 47/8. And basically that's just all that was in that section. So again, we're going to take the integer, multiply it by the denominator, and then add this value to the numerator that we already had. And that is how you take a mixed number to a simple fraction. In section 11, it talked about a complex fraction. So here we have our complex fraction, and those are already given in mixed numbers. And what we need for them to be, we need them in simple fractions so we can then talk about our mean terms and our extreme terms, which we'll talk about in a second after we convert these to our mixed number, or our simple fractions. So again, just like in section 10, we are going to multiply our numerator by our integer by our denominator. 3 times 5 is 15. We're going to add our numerator, 15 plus 1, and that is going to give us 16/5. Draw our bar line. Okay, our integer times our denominator. 5 times 9 is 45, plus our numerator, 45 plus 2, is 47/9. Now we have this same form that I have over here. And we have, the book talks about mean terms and extreme terms. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to be multiplying our mean terms and multiplying our extreme terms to find, we're working on getting rid of these denominators. And what we can do is multiply this entire fraction by each of these denominators in turn. So as you can see, if we multiplied this entire fraction by 9, we'd get 16 times 9/5. And here, as we talked about in our previous lesson, as we're multiplying by 9, we can multiply the numerator by 9, or we can divide the denominator by 9. If we divided the denominator by 9, this would cancel out and leave us 47/1. So that would give us 16, oh, that's hard to see, sorry. 16 times 9/5 and 47. So now we have nothing over there, and now we need, so that's how we got rid of our 9. Now we need to get rid of this 5. So again, here we're going to, divide by 5 to multiply this term, this fraction, by 5, and here we're going to multiply by 5, and this is going to cancel out. So now we have 16 times 9/47 times 5. And then you can work out that multiplication yourself. But as you can see, we're just multiplying these terms and multiplying these terms. Our extreme terms are the outside terms. They're on the extreme ends of our fraction. And our mean terms are in the middle, so that should help you remember that. Okay, now in section 12, we're going to be talking about those compound fractions where you have a fraction of a fraction. Okay, so we are talking about 3/4 of the quantity 5/7. So this quantity of 5/7 is going to be broken down into fourths, and then we're taking 3 of those. Now what you're going to be doing, really, this word of in fractions, you're going to end up just multiplying your fractions across. So we're going to just multiply our numerators, multiply our denominators, giving us 15/28. Okay, sorry for the spacing. All right, so in section 13, it talks about the greatest common measure. We talked a little bit about this in our last lecture. It's also called the greatest common factor. And what we're doing is we're just looking at a fraction, getting it down to simplest terms. Hopefully it's fairly easy for you to see that we can divide this entire fraction by 12/12 and end up with 2/5. Again, these are numbers that you should be fairly familiar with, and so those factors hopefully are fairly easy for you to see. Now, in section 14, which is on page 25, there's a whole chart of divisibility rules. So you can look at a number and tell if it's divisible by 2, if it's divisible by 3, if it's divisible by 4, and see what's going on. For instance, using those divisibility rules, we can check to see if a number is divisible by 2 by whether or not it's even. So we know that 147 is not divisible by 2 because it's an odd number. 962 is divisible by 2. 8,496 is divisible by 2 because those are both even. Using those rules, we can check to see if something is divisible by 3 because the digits in the number will add up to something that is divisible by 3. So we would have, let's check these numbers. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 7 is 12. 12 is a multiple of 3, so 147 is divisible by 3. 9 plus 6 is 15, plus 2 is 17. That's not a multiple of 3, so 962 is not divisible by 3. 8 plus 4 is 12. Plus 9 is 21, plus 6 is 27. So again, that is 8,496 is divisible by 6. Or I'm sorry, divisible by 3. 8,496 is also divisible by 6 because to be divisible by 6, you need to be divisible by 3 and divisible by 2. And we found that both of those are the case, as the sum of the digits are divisible by 3 and it is even. So it is also divisible by 6. Okay. Sorry, so you can use these divisibility rules to help you find the greatest common measure or the greatest common factor. Okay, so now section 15 talks about finding the greatest common measure using division. All right, so if you were told to reduce 52 169ths, those are numbers that I don't see a lot on multiplication tables, and I can't really see a lot, there isn't a common factor that really pops out at me. So what Pure Mathematics is telling us to do, we're going to take the larger number, 169, and that is going to become our dividend. So let's set up our problem, 169 9 divided by 52. Actually, I'm not going to use this form. I do like the pure mathematics form for this particular type of problem because it is going to extend. All right, now 52 doesn't go into 1, doesn't go into 16, so we do have to go all the way to 169. 52 is very close to 50, and I know that 50 times 3 is going to give us 150. 50 times 4 is going to give us 200. So let's go with 3 for right now. So let's multiply our real number. So 3 times 2 is going to give us 6. 3 times 5, 150. Subtract, and this gives us 13. All right, so that is not the answer that we wanted. We wanted to get to 0, but what we're going to do now is divide 52 by 113, or I'm sorry, just by 13. Okay, so 52, 13. All right, so 5 is not, 13 doesn't go into 5, so we'll go all the way to 52. Well, 13 is very close to 10, but we are close enough that I don't think we can go to 4, so I don't think we can go all the way to 5, and because 5 times 10 is 50, but we have that other 3 in there, so I'm going to start with 4. 3 times 4 is 12, carry your 1, and 5, and so now we get our 0. So what that means, as we divided and got our 0, that means that 13 is our greatest common measure. This is also covered in Elementary Treatise, so we will talk about it again and see it in a different notation. Because as you can see, there were 13 left, so 169 is clearly divisible by 13 if you're going to be having groups of 13. By the way, in case you didn't know, 169 is 13 squared, so it definitely works with this example. Okay, so now that we have figured out ways to find the greatest common measure, either by just knowing the factors in our head, or using our divisibility rules, or using division, we are going to now use that to take this equation, or take this fraction and put it into its simplest form. All right, so I'm going to use the division method because that one is the newest to me, and so I want to make sure that I practice with that. So we're going to take 256 divided by 12. I'm going to go with 2, get 24, subtract, get 16, 1, 12, get 4. Okay, so I have 4 as my remainder. I'm going to move that over here. 12 divided by 4 gives me 3. Okay, very clear. You know, we know that. So we used 4 as our divisor, and so that is our factor. All right, let me actually, okay, so we're going to come down here. So we have 256. We know that our greatest common factor is 4 divided by 4 divided by 4. This is going to give us 3. That is not something I know in my head. I'm going to go with 256 divided by 4, 6, 24, 1, 6, 4, 16, 0, 64. Now, 64 does have other factors, 8, 4, others, but 3 is a prime number. So these numbers are prime to each other, and therefore it is in its simplest form, and we cannot reduce it or simplify it anymore, and it is in its simplest form. All right, so that is all that we are talking about for today. Hopefully all this talk of fractions is settling in well. Again, if you ever have any questions, feel free to email me or write down your questions, bring them up on our live chat on Thursday. You can talk about any question from any week at the live chat. It doesn't have to be what we're talking about that specific week.